Hey y'all, this is part two to part one of the history of the Ku Klux Klan. Thanks for tuning into History with Chemistry. Let's get into it. Now, in part one, I do jump from 1871 to 1915 to the release of the birth of a nation because it was important to note that there was a large shift in mindset between that time and how media was the main reason that we know the Ku Klux Klan to be who it is today. But I want to take some time to go back before 1915. Now, after the Ku Klux Klan Act was passed, it wasn't really needed anymore because now these Klan members were already in position to be lawmakers, legislators, police officers, so on and so forth. And they could use their power to enforce these black codes and segregation. Also, Jim Crow. This is where we saw an influx of lynchings. But these lynchings weren't necessarily, just people being hung. These were whole ceremonies. There would be a preacher to come up and pray. Hundreds of people would come to watch after church. This was typically scheduled on a Sunday so that after church, after they've eaten and everything, they can go to this event and watch a person or a family, a group of people be lynched. Once the lynching took place, whether that be being hung and shot, being stoned, being set on fire, they would typically take the body parts of these black people, take them home as some sort of like souvenir. These were very, very large events, and it happened a lot, way more than what history will write. So much so that they had literal postcards of people being hung saying like, you can come this day. There was invitations like this was like a fucking baby shower or something. So from the KKK Act to black people having the right to vote, utilizing their right to vote and run for office, to black people becoming somewhat of a majority of legislators and lawmakers in states like Virginia and Louisiana. The KKK was kind of underground, but they were boiling. It was messing with them. What added to that was a large influx of immigration. In the early 1900s, there was a lot of Southern European, but really just general European immigrants, which weren't considered white, by the way. I'll get into that shortly. But there was also a lot of immigrants coming from Southern America, Central America, and South America. So this just broadened the scope of the KKK's racism. So now we're into the 1900s. Birth of a Nation is out. We know that it kind of gave the KKK some type of boost and ideas as to how they can, I guess, be portrayed to the society. And this movie was so dangerous because it painted black people out to be monsters. Part of that movie is there's every black character that's in that movie is something. If it's a woman, she's like a mammy. So she's taking care of the family and she's ignorant. She doesn't know any better. She's timid. She's scared. If it's a black man, he's either acting like a character of a minstrel. So kind of like acting weird, or he was a rapist / monster. And this helped shape the national perception of black people. It wasn't too long ago that black people were just released from these shackles. So their image was now being painted by a racist movie. Now, the NAACP did work relentlessly to try to get this movie banned. They even paid some movie theaters to not show it, but that was not stopping it. The president had already called it brilliant, and he was endorsing this. And it was not just him. So at this point, the KKK got exactly what they needed from this movie, which was image and approval, considering that the president was a Klansman himself. So at this point, the KKK hired a marketing team. You heard that right. They hired a marketing team. Elizabeth Tyler and Edward Clark. These two decided to create the Klan as what we would call a modern day pyramid scheme. It was lucrative to the people at the top, but if you were one of the everyday Klansmen, you were not seeing this money. Part of the scheme was you pay $10 as initiation fee. The person that you paid that $10 to takes half of that and gives the rest to the person above them. And now you have the capabilities of recruiting someone else where you get $5 out of their 10 and you give the other $5 to the person above you. This pyramid scheme, like I said, made the Klan a buttload of money. Another part of the scheme was that you had to rent your robes. And if you didn't rent your robes, you would have to pay, I want to say it was like $30 to own it, which without inflation, that's a lot of money. I did the math. And with inflation, that's about $1,000 for just one robe. So the option to rent was more reasonable, putting that money into the Grand Dragon and Grand Wizard's hands. So at this point, the KKK had their marketing team, and part of their marketing team was to take the robes off, was to take the hoods off at least, and become marketable members of society, respected members of society. And they did just that. The KKK, the Klansmen, were somewhat celebrities. Like, they were people that you would get an autograph from, people you would want to interview. These were highly respected and brave soldiers of the South. They had newspapers. I'm actually going to look down. There's one newspaper called the Fiery Cross and the Searchlight. That is going to be important. Remember, I said that. Part of this resurgence was just to make sure that people understood that the KKK was not here to harm white people. And by white people, I don't mean all Europeans. The only people that was considered superior in this country were people that were of the Aryan race, and they were Protestant. So if you were Catholic, you were Muslim, it doesn't matter who you are, even if you are white, if you weren't Protestant, you ain't one of us. So all this time has passed since the first resurgence after the birth of a nation, and they have some 200,000 members. They were powerful. And that was just members that were willing to associate with the Klan. They still had a multitude that were underground. So now you have the Klan being anti-Semitic, anti-urban, which is black, anti-immigration, and anti-communism. They were also anti-Catholic. Now, Catholicism was directly, I guess you could say, connected to Europeans. So when I say Europeans, I mean other white people, but they weren't Protestant. So you were lumped in with the rest of them. Fast forward to August 8th of 1945, some 40,000 Klansmen decided to march down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. Now, the significance of this march was they did not wear their hoods. They were not ashamed, nor were they afraid. Although the Ku Klux Klan Act was still effective. It was still active. But President Harry Truman and the other presidents had already said that they promote and approve of what the Klan is doing, so they're not going to receive any pushback. And also, like I mentioned before, they had people in position to protect them. They were very smart with their actions. And the whole point of this march, like I said, was just to show that we are no longer underground. We are out in the open, and this is who we are. Now, in 1924, the Immigration Act was passed, which prohibited Europeans from immigrating to America, but it really didn't do much. They were still coming because at the end of the day, they are white. They know loopholes. They will use them. So now you can see how effective having these people in these positions are. And I have some numbers here. They became 75 representatives, 11 governors, and 16 elected senators by the mid-1920s. And it did not stop there. But that is how we got this modern day culture of black people being the second class, black people being pushed to the side, disregarded, disrespected, because it was protected and it was enforced by these people that put these laws, these black codes, these red light, all these different things in effect and allowed it to go on for so long. Now, the KKK had another death, and the start of this downfall was when a Grand Dragon of Indiana, his name was David Stevenson, he decided to rape and kill his female white woman secretary. Now, like I said in part one, a major part of the Klan was that they were supposed to protect white women. This ruined the integrity of the Klan. Like, completely. And not to mention, it didn't make it any better that when he got caught and decided to just go down, he brought the ship down with him. He pointed at every single person, exposed every single Grand Dragon, everything that he knew. And it just didn't make anything better for the Klan. This is only the first reason of the downfall of the Klan that second time. And I'm going to stop here. Part 3 is going to be coming soon. Go ahead and get